and talk about squares and square roots. So here we're going to start by creating a list of perfect squares. So perfect square is the product of a number times itself. So anytime I multiply a number times itself, the answer is a perfect square. Now, when I take the square root of a perfect square, they're the only ones that are going to result in rational square roots. Anytime you take the square root of any number that's not a perfect square, you're going to get irrational square roots, meaning you'll result in a decimal that's going to go on forever and never repeat. So let's fill in these perfect squares. Well, 1 squared is 1 times 1, which is 1. 2 squared, 2 times 2 is 4. 3 squared, 3 times 3 is 9. 4 squared, 4 times 4 is 16. 5 squared, 5 times 5 is 25. 6 squared, 6 times 6 is 36. 7 squared, 7 times 7 is 49. 8 squared, 8 times 8 is 64. 9 squared, 9 times 9 is 81. 10 squared, 10 times 10 is 100. 11 squared, 11 times 11 is 121. 12 squared is 12 times 12, which is 144. 13 squared is 169. 14 squared, 14 times 14 is 196. And 15 squared, 15 times 15 is 225. These are your perfect squares that you should be able to recognize that when I ask you for the square root of those, you will get a rational answer. So simplify and evaluate the following expressions. Well, here I have the square root of 46 minus 10. So when I have something that I'm adding or subtracting underneath the radical sign, I want to deal with that first. So 46 minus 10 is 36. So I'm really taking the square root of 36. And the answer to the square root of 36 is plus or minus 6. The reason it is plus or minus 6, because when we talk about squaring something, that means a number times itself. Well, if I multiply negative 6 times negative 6, I still get positive 36. Therefore, when I take the square root of positive 36, my answer can either be positive 6 or it can be negative 6. Now I have the square root of 100 over the square root of 25. Well, when I get something like this, I'm going to want to simplify the square roots first, and then I can divide them. Well, the square root of 100 is plus or minus 10. The square root of 25 is plus or minus 5. 10 divided by 5 is 2, so our answer is just plus or minus 2. Here I have 9 plus 16 underneath the square root sign. So remember, if you're adding or subtracting, you want to deal with that first. Multiplying or dividing, you deal with that afterwards. So 9 plus 16 is 25. The square root of 25 is plus or minus 5, because positive 5 times positive 5 is 25. And negative 5 times negative 5 is also positive 25, because a negative times a negative is a positive. Here I have 8 times the square root of 49. Whenever you have a number right next to the radical sign, that's just like in the calculator or when you have parentheses, it means to multiply. So I'm going to take the square root of 49, which is plus or minus 7. And so I'm going to be doing 8 times plus or minus 7, which is plus or minus 56. Here it says Miss Green is painting a square wall in her house with an area of 115 feet. What is the closest to the measurement of a side length of the wall in feet? Well, if it's a square wall, the side lengths have to be the same. So if I call this side length x, this one also has to be x. And if I find the area of a square, that's length times width, or x times x, and that's equal to the area I gave you, which was 115. Well, x times x is x squared. The only way to undo squaring something, the opposite of squaring something, is to take the square root. So I take the square root of both sides. The square root of x squared is just x. The square root of 115 is 10.72. So that is the side length of the wall. Now, one quick note, if you want to enter a square root into the calculator, you're going to do second x squared, and that will give you the radical sign. Again, that's second, which is the blue button, x squared. All right, thank you.